Ladies and gentlemen, and every gender in between, welcome to Gender Revolution, a YouTube channel dedicated to the normalisation of transgender within contemporary Western society. In the previous videos, I described the scientific theories that lead to the state of being that we describe as transgender. In this video, I am going to discuss the negative and debilitating feelings a transgender person experiences, known as gender dysphoria. And whilst the science of transgender remains uncertain, what is very certain is the existence of gender dysphoria, which can drive a transgender person to the edge of death and in some cases over the edge. Many people in society are happy with their physical appearance and they remain content with it throughout their lives. But others are aware of parts of their body they don't like. They may not be as pretty as they would wish. Their skin texture is not right. The size, shape and weight of their body is not as they desire. Their nose, their mouth or other facial features are the wrong shape. And whilst each person has their own unique concerns about their bodies, they have one thing in common. They will make efforts to be comfortable with who they are. And for those people whose discomfort is only minor, their clothing choice and other material decoration like jewellery is the limit of their focus, ensuring they have the right clothes that fit and are the right colours and designs and accessorised to complement their bodies, hiding and disguising any perceived imperfections. And the aim is to feel at ease with who they see in the mirror. But some people will take further steps to target specific parts of their body to relieve their discomfort. For example, they may wear heels to look taller, a hat to cover a bald spot, hairstyles and makeup to look more attractive, padded bras to increase bust size, girdles to hold in their tummy, dark tights to cover blemishes on their legs, and so on and so forth. But for many people this is still not enough, and they decide to make physical changes to their bodies, some of which are surgical and irreversible. For example, they may have a facelift, a tummy tuck, varicose veins removed, breast implantations or indeed tattoos. Now, within our modern Western society, all of these alterations, whether superficial, substantial, permanent or reversible, are all considered socially acceptable, providing the person does not make changes to the way they present their gender, whether man or woman. Some people, though, in order to achieve the same level of comfort with their appearance as is their right, need to make changes to their presentation that results in altering their gender expression, either changing from looking like a woman to like a man or vice versa, or indeed not looking like society's concept of either a man or woman. And as I've just said, like everyone else, they have a right to make these changes to be more comfortable with who they see in the mirror. But unfortunately, they are persecuted, ridiculed and abused by our culture and given the label transgender. For a transgender person, this feeling of discomfort can be mild and irritating, or it can increase to become powerful, all-consuming, to the extent that the person cannot lead a normal lifestyle because of the painful emotional turmoil felt. This then becomes a medical issue when it is diagnosed by doctors as gender dysphoria. Dysphoria meaning unhappy in Greek. The extent of the modifications, whether superficial or substantial, which each person needs to make to their gender presentation to feel comfortable and to reduce their gender dysphoria, is called managing gender dysphoria and is unique to each individual. For transgender people, the process of making the changes to their gender presentation is called transitioning. In other words, they transition from the unwanted gender presentation to a more desirable gender presentation. For some, the gender dysphoria is so strong that they want to pass fully in their desired gender and live 100% of the time in this gender. For others, the dysphoria is not as persistent or consistent, and they live a more gender fluid lifestyle where they make non-permanent changes to their gender and only on a partial or social basis, for example, once or twice a week for an evening out. Each transgender person has options for how and when they express their gender, and these are called transition options, and they are portrayed pictorially here. Unfortunately, in our society, the word transgender is not fully understood by most people, and many people make the assumption that all transgender people want to transition full-time from one binary gender to the other. But this is simply not the case. There are many trans people whose management of gender dysphoria means they only want to make partial or social changes to their presentation. And many of these social partial transitioners are frightened to present their preferred gender in public or to friends and family because they fear rejection. For example, a man who prefers to present as a woman just a couple of times a week may face divorce from his wife because she assumes he wants to live fully as a woman, including having surgical interventions. But all he wants to do is rebalance his life so that he can express his femininity more openly. The theory of transgender relativity is a useful way of showing to your friends and family how transgender you really are. And for those people who do not want to lose a partner or relative because they make incorrect assumptions about you, then the theory of transgender relativity may help to convince them that you do not want to make a total and irreversible change of gender from one extreme binary to another. The reason for the existence of a transgender mind are not fully understood by scientists, and so there is no objective way to measure how transgender someone may be. So instead, we can make an analysis of trans people within society and measure subjectively how transgender they are relative to another transgender person. And this can be done by looking at two variables. The first is called the degree of dysphoria. And that is what a person feels, whether it is just mild and irritating or if it is powerful and all-consuming. The second variable is called the degree of transition and is based on an individual's health, relationship and other lifestyle factors, and therefore how far they want to transition away from their bothersome gender. Both the degree of gender dysphoria and the degree of transition can be measured using a scale that is based on the experienced physical impact of the particular variable, just like the Beaufort scale uses the impact of wind on various objects like trees to show how strong the wind is. The degree of gender dysphoria can therefore be described by the descending scale shown in this diagram. If the person has strong gender dysphoria, then this feeling will become apparent and all-consuming at an early age, as young as 4 years old. And if not dealt with, the person will find the dysphoria totally debilitating and distracting, with serious negative consequences to their childhood. So in comparison to other trans people, they score very high for gender dysphoria. On the other hand, if the dysphoria is only mild and just irritating, then the person may decide to live with it for many years, possibly all their lives, or they may deal with it later on as an adult, in which case their relative score of dysphoria is lower. And the degree that a person decides to transition based on their health, relationship and other lifestyle factors is shown in this table. We can see that the score for gender dysphoria that a person awards themselves is a comparison of the relative amount of discomfort their gender dysphoria gives them compared to other people, and the score for degree of transition shows how much they are prepared to move away from their bothersome gender. Now, what the theory of transgender relativity does is it multiplies these scores together to give an overall relative percentage of how transgender one person is compared to another. So, for example, if a person has felt powerful dysphoria from a young age, they may score, for example, 9 for degree of dysphoria. And if there are no health, relationship or lifestyle limitations, that person may want to transition fully, both socially, physically and legally, and indeed would score, say, 8 for degree of transition. Multiplying the scores together, 8 times 9, 72, 72%. So that person is, relatively speaking, 72% transgender. But a person whose dysphoria is only irritable and mildly discomforting, and they have suppressed it for many years, their score for dysphoria would be, for example, 4. And when, for lifestyle, health or other factors, they decide they want to transition, they may do so only partially and socially with no physical or legal changes. So their score for degree of transition may be, for example, 3. Multiply 3 and 4 together, 12%. So that person is roughly 12% transgender compared to the previous person who was 72%. So what is the importance of measuring transgender like this using a relative scale? It's that many transgender people have friends and family who do not accept their gender status because they make the incorrect assumption that the transgender person wants to transition fully from one binary gender to another. For example, a man transitioning fully to become a woman, which his wife will not be happy about. But within our society, most people do not make this full transition. In fact, less than 50% of trans people have genital plastic surgery. So in conclusion, most, if not everybody in society, whether non-transgender or transgender, will make changes to their appearance so they feel comfortable with the person they see in the mirror. Some of the changes are cosmetic and reversible, others are more permanent and include physical changes to the body, and society accepts these changes. A transgender person is no different, but their focus is on changing their presentation in a way that changes their gender, either fully or partially, reversible or irreversible. In other words, they manage their gender dysphoria to reduce it or totally eradicate it. And by doing so, they become happier with who they see in the mirror. And if the world is full of happy people, it's got to be a better place for us all. My name is Julie Miller from genderrevolution.co.uk. Thank you for watching this video.